So we have this incredible 1968 Blue Flower Fender Tele bass. It's got some issues. The paper is lifting off. Somebody had taken a graft out of the back to put in the front, and they didn't even match the paper. So obviously there was a piece of paper missing in the front, and they took that graft out of the back to put in here. So we're going to try to remove this graft with infrared lamps. So we're going to heat up that graft with these infrared lamps and try to remove it. So after a couple minutes, things are starting to soften up, and I'm able to get my razor blade under this graft. Unfortunately, there's some like Crino type of glue that was used in addition to whatever else kind of paste they used to get the paper on. So this is going to take a while. So I've slowly been working my palette knife across this. Still some of that crazy glue is holding on there. There we go. So I slowly worked my palette knife underneath and got that graft out of there. So now we're going to press this so it doesn't warp or buckle or shrink, so we can put that back on the back of the guitar. Now wherever there's a crack, the paper is lifted. So what I've been doing is putting glue on the razor blade and then sticking the razor blade in the crack and then holding it down. One crack at a time, because I don't want to get any glue on top of the finish. And so I've been doing that throughout. These are all glued down. Paper is no longer moving, it's all solid. So I'm going to do that with every crack in the guitar. And there are many. This is the part I heated up earlier and pressed this down. So it's all ready to be glued down now too. There won't be any humps in the paper like there was before. Now you can clearly see that this piece that they took out of the back and grafted to the top, again, none of the patterns match up. So they took the wrong graft out of the back in the first place. Now you can clearly see that this piece fits right back in here, and all of the patterns match up. So we will be putting that piece back in the bass in the back here. Then we'll find a piece to fill in there. So I've got that patch that was cut out of the back, the piece that originally came out of the back. So that's back in here. It's glued down, nice and flat. As you can see now, the pattern matches. Kind of hard to see with the glare, but there you go. So we'll have to do some lacquer touch-up. And I still have to glue down all the rest of the cracks in the back here, especially this big seam here. And then of course we'll have to find a piece of paper sitting here. But it's coming along nicely. Alright, so we've found the section of wallpaper that fits in our hole, and we've traced it out, pressed it into the missing piece, and then we will, so you can see our little tracing, our impression, then we'll cut it out and fit it in the hole. But that's how we've had. So I've just wet sanded the whole base, and you know, you can see how much crud was on it over the years. I've wet sanded it with 400, so when we clear coat it, the lacquer will stick. It's one thing I've learned about this is that they polyurethaned over the paper, and then they shot the blue sunburst and clear coated it with lacquer, because these are poly checks, the big cracks. I call them cracks, not checks. Poly cracks, because polyurethane cracks, it doesn't check. And there's all this fine lacquer checking all the way around the rim of the guitar. It comes in about this far. So they did lacquer over the sunburst when it was done. I'll be doing the same thing. So my next step, now that the guitar is wet sanded, is to airbrush the blue sunburst to the edges again. And then we will then do a tinted lacquer, vintage tint over that, because this isn't blue anymore, it's green. You can see where it's blue and green. That's just how it's faded over the years. Same with the top, where the pickguard was is still blue. This is all green. Of course, some of that came off, as you can see how yellow that is. But again, I'll burst this in, and we're going to lightly tint this, and then we'll clear lacquer the whole thing. So I just mixed up some lacquer. Actually, I mixed it up when I was touching up some of the seam work, and so I put it in my little airbrush gun, and then I just bursted the side here, just in this area where the new paper was added. Kind of blend it. And then we're going to shoot some tinted vintage clear over that, so we can get this to blend with the rest of the color. You can see where it's really green, and then it gets blue again, so that's where the new blue is. We got to get that green like the rest of the base. Depending on the light, like you see in here, it looks more blue, but the whole base overall is green. It's showing up on the camera as blue, but it's pretty green. So after that dries, maybe a day, then I'll start tinting the rest of it. See if we can get a shot of the back here. I bursted that little piece of paper back there too. So it's coming along. About the hardest part of doing this is getting the shading right, because again, you can see how green it is in some areas and blue. And the guitar just got greener and greener as we went down here to the bottom. Of course, this is all yellowed. Where the pickguard was, it's not. So we've got all the shading done now. Nice blend of greens and blues. I'll show you the back real quick. That's where our patch was. So now we're going to start doing the clear coats. Okay, so we're back. The base has been hanging and drying for about a month to get the lacquer nice and hard. And today, doing the wet sanding, go from 400 grit to 600 to 1500. And then I'll start buffing, but I've got the back wet sanded. So it's got a nice matte finish on it, and everything's pretty level. I mean, as level as it can be for gluing down all this popped up paper all over the place. But it's really turned out fantastic. So even with the satin finish that it's sporting now, just because I've wet sanded it, it looks really, really good. So we'll finish wet sanding it, and then we will go on to the buffing machine. So I've got the front and the sides are buffed out with the rough rouge, and it's really looking good. And then we'll go on to the final buffing polish, and it'll really glow. Now if there's any buffing compound residue left on the body, then I've got some naphtha, and we clean all of that off and get everything really nice and clean. Looks great. Our patch, our colors, everything's matching. Is matched very nicely. All that destruction back here. It's all back in one piece. And we are ready for reassembly. So here we are with the reassembly. It's all done. We've run our ground wire back under the bridge and attached that. Pickguard's back on, so now you can really see how it faded. The clear coat lacquer turned yellow over the blue flower. Well, here we are about 9 months later. It's all done. And it looks great. We saved one of the rarest basses on the planet. There you go. So here is the finished product. It was a lot of work, very time consuming, but worth every moment. Really satisfying repair to do something like this and accomplish this.